Hello, this is Brian Foster, and welcome to my Tuesday night live stream on YouTube. Today is April 21st, 2020. And today we're bringing you something a little different. This is the Dreams of Maria, Nightmares and Revelations. What do they mean? And what I do in this program is I bring you interpretations. I bring you information from Spiritist books. I bring you information from near-death experiences, after-death experiences, other writings about the spiritual world. And I've also talked about dreams and how to interpret them. And today, someone sent me a dream, and usually I don't do this as a program, but this was so interesting, I decided to devote a live stream to it. But first, please subscribe, hit the bell, please like this video. Please share this video. Comment on this video if you have other interpretations than I do. I interpret these dreams all based upon what I know about Spiritism. And of course, Spiritism was brought to you by the Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism. In the 1850s, he wrote a series of 1,019 questions, gave them to different mediums in different geographical locations, and then from there got answers from a multitude of spirits, all led by the Spirit of Truth, as promised in the New Testament by Jesus. A Spirit of Truth would come and give us more information. And from there, we learn more about the spirit world. We learn about the reality of karma, the fact of reincarnation, the fact that we are immortal spirits living life after life, and we are on earth to learn to become a pure spirit, to learn to become a better. Each life, hopefully we get a little bit better. Sometimes we park for a while. I know I have been told I have, but hopefully each life we get rid more of our primitive emotions and bring in the more advanced emotions. So let's start with what I am going to talk about today. So one of my readers wrote to me asking about how to interpret her dream. And it was such an interesting dream, full of symbolism of her past lives, with messages from spirits concerning her present life. And actually dreams, I should say, not dream. So at her request, I decided to devote my program to her situation. Now, first, I want to state that I may be wrong. This is my interpretation, and I could certainly be in error. I find that most people understand their own dreams better than anyone else, although sometimes it may take time to come to an understanding. What I do as a rule is if I have an interesting dream, I write it down, and as time goes by, I look and see if it meant something, right? Because you usually don't understand your dreams mean something till months or years after. I know for me, sometimes it was years. So I have changing her name, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to read through what she sent me, and then I'm going to go through the pertinent paragraphs, and I'll put those paragraphs on the screen. So I'll read her whole message first. Hi, Brian. I hope you're well. My name is Maria, and I changed her name. I'm a Portuguese-born Australian. I watch all your YouTube videos and love the way you explain things, and even more, so I love that it's all in English. I wanted to ask you if you're able to do a video that is centered around dreams, nightmares in particular. I'm trying to find some clarity in this subject. Ever since I was a little girl, I've always had really strange dreams. Most about rising waters and tsunamis. I dream these over and over again, everything exactly the same. I even said inside my dreams, I've seen this before. Why are you showing me this again? I've had dreams where I was awake inside my dreams, and I sat inside a circle of people sitting around me, all talking and chanting in Portuguese. And I say, what are you doing to me? I know I'm in my sleep right now. Why have you brought my soul here? When I wake up, I will remember what you are doing. They laugh, and I wake up with my heart racing. Dreams where I'm actually every person in the dream, but there are 5 different people. I live in the dream through all 5 people's perspective. But what bothers me most is killing in dreams. I'm always running away from people in my dreams, always bad people, sometimes even vampires or witches, etc. If they catch up to me in my dreams, I always end up having to kill them or be killed. I've asked many people if they kill people in their dreams, and they always say no. I know that it's always to protect myself, and I'm not a bad person, but I'm trying to find out more clarity as why this keeps happening. Are all nightmares caused by an obsessing spirit, or is it my own over imagination? I should say I don't always have nightmares, but they seem to be the majority of my dreams and always the most vivid. Just a few weeks ago, I had a beautiful dream where I was with my mother, who lives in a different state than me. I can't say where because it was just like I just was there. But I remember a ball of light came down, and I said to my mom, "It's grandmother. Mom, it's Avo," which Avo is a word for grandmother in Portuguese. I don't know why I knew this ball of light was my grandmother, but in my dream, I was 100% sure it was. That is all I can recall of that dream, but I was very happy that I dreamt of her, as I've only ever had one dream with my grandmother since her passing over 18 years ago. I called my mom the morning out of curiosity and asked if she had any dreams that night. Mom said no, quite the opposite. She said she felt an urge to sleep. She was so tired. It was like someone was trying to make her sleep, and she fell into a very deep sleep and woke up this morning. To me, I know that it was real, and even more fascinating, I related to my grandmother as a ball of white light. I should say that I come from a family line of mediums. My grandmother was a spiritist and helped a lot of people in her center in Portugal. I've also seen and heard spirits since a young age, but have always been in fear and wanted nothing to do with it. I've always turned my back on anything of the sort. I've heard from my family overseas all my life, "You need to work, you need to go to the center, or it will get worse." But I ignored all the advice. 6 months ago, I had my first encounter with a spirit when a spirit came through me and spoke. This shook me up very much, and since then I've given in and attended a spiritist center and have been invited to their mediumship meetings, but have not been able to attend since COVID-19, as all meetings have been canceled. Since then, I've been in search of answers, reading books. I purchased 4 of your books on Amazon just before Christmas, watching videos, etc. But I haven't been able to find the answers I'm looking for in regards to my dreams. I hope it was okay to message you. I don't know if asking for questions about killing in my dreams would be appropriate to put on your group page. Thank you for listening to me. God bless, Maria. So, very interesting. So let's bring up the first snippet because this is, let's go in this in good order. And let's bring it here. Now, let's review this again. Ever since, I'll read the first part and I'll go through each part and then I will try to explain each part as well as I can. Ever since I was a little girl, I've always had really strange dreams, most about rising waters and tsunamis. I dream these over and over again, everything exactly the same. I've even said inside my dreams, "I've seen this before. Why are you showing me this again?" I've had dreams where I awake inside my dreams and I sat inside a circle of people sitting around me, all talking and chanting in Portuguese. And I say, "What are you doing to me? I know I'm in my sleep right now. Why have you brought my soul here?" And when I wake up, I remember what you are doing. They laugh and I wake up with my heart racing. So let's look at these 2 paragraphs. Now, there are ways, let's talk about obsession, because it sounds like there are spirits around her. And there are ways for a person to be obsessed. Now, in the book Action and Reaction by Francisco C. Xavier, dictated by the spirit Andre Louise, there is an example. And of course, this is Francisco C. Xavier was a spiritist medium, and all the books and snippets of that I'm talking about will come from spiritist sources. So there's an example of one method used to cause an innocent person to be obsessed. Now, what is the definition of obsession? That is the dominating of one's thoughts or feelings by persistent idea, image, desire, etc. Now, it sounds like Maria's having images and ideas in her minds, and they're talking to her in her sleep. Now, in the book Action and Reaction, Andre Luis is studying in the lower zones when he encounters a woman who asks that he and his friends assist her to help her son. She tells them that her son Luis is being obsessed because of the wrongs of his father. Now, the son, Luis, is now grown into a man with a wife and children, actually. His father murdered his two uncles, so only he would be left with the inheritance. Now, when the father died and out of the uncle's grasp in the spirit world, the two are concentrating on destroying their nephew's life, all out of revenge. This is the usual reason why spirits obsess someone else, because that person did something very, in their mind, very bad to them in some past life, and now they want justice as far as they're concerned. They do not understand that God and karma in the spirit world supplies all justice. So Henri Louis journeys to the house where he finds it's filled with miserly spirits who are themselves obsessed with the material world and treasure. These poor spirits haven't been able to leave the lower zone because of their inability to free themselves of their desire for riches on earth. They haven't yet looked up and learned to follow the path of love and service to others. Now, Andre and company wander around the house and they spot the son freed from his physical body at night. He was asleep, and his spirit went, and he went into his office, and he was admiring the stacks of money. And there they met the two uncles. And now, after a brief conversation with the two uncles, Silas, who was the team leader for Andre, he summarized the situation. This is what Silas said. Okay, what you've said leads us to believe that, besides his sickly attachment to precarious human wealth, this man, he pointed to Luis the son, who continued to seem fascinated with the stacks of currency in the overstuffed drawer, also suffers the pressure of other minds as delusional as his own in the illusions of material possessions. In this case, the sick desire that has seized him has increased to the maximum. And then one of the uncles, Lionel, he says, yes, that's exactly, you're absolutely right. And then, of course, he, like all criminals, he can't wait to describe exactly how the deed was accomplished. And this is what Lionel says. Yes, we learn in the schools for avengers that now, so he's talking about schools for avengers in the umbral, and what we call the lower zone in English, is there are schools, there are cities, there are things. This is organized. This is organized. And usually who's in charge of these little fiefdoms are like mafia warlords, mafia bosses. So anyway, so he goes, we learn in the school for adventures that besides our ordinary immediate desires at every phase of life, we all possess a central desire or basic theme in our innermost interest. Therefore, besides the normal thoughts that bind us to our daily routines, we more frequently emit the thoughts that originate in the central desire that characterizes us. These thoughts eventually comprise the dominant reflection of our personality. This makes it easy to perceive anyone's nature on any plane just by analyzing their occupations and places of preference. Thus, cruelty is a reflection of the criminal. Covetousness is reflection of the miser. Defamation, the reflection of the slanderer. Sarcasm, the reflection of the cynic. And anger, the reflection of the disturbed person, just as moral elevation is a reflection of the saint. Now, very interesting what he just said. Now, one can see from his dissertation what an easy mark most of us would be to be obsessed. Now, I recommend my dominant theme, this is hopefully before I became a spiritist, would be a cynic, right? I had sarcasm was flowing from my mind and my tongue. It was all undisciplined. And this is why we need to work not only on our outer shell, what we show to the world, but our inner thoughts as well. For when we pass over, our every little musings we have is available to other spirits to receive. Thoughts, they go out. Good spirits, bad spirits, and different spirits. They can read our thoughts. Therefore, we need to focus our energies on the good and not be influenced to exhibit undesirable behavior. And controlling your thoughts, this is something mediums really need to work on. Now, let's talk about the process. So, next, Leonel discusses the exact process to leverage what is already inside us. Now, this is fascinating. Now, this is a criminal, trying to punish some poor nephew, right? His nephew for what his father did. This is what Lionel said. Once we discover the reflection of the individual we want to rectify or punish, it is very simple to overwhelm the person with unceasing stimuli, reinforcing the impulses and images already in his mind, creating new ones to superimpose over the old ones, thereby continually feeding his mental fixation. With this objective in mind, all we have to do is bring for the pernicious individual we want to correct into contact with others that adapt to his manner of feeling and being, especially when we ourselves don't have the time to create all the appropriate mental screens through hypnotic procedures. Using such processes, we can easily create and maintain a psychic delirium, our obsession, which is nothing more than an abnormal state of the mind that is dominated by the excess of its own creations, pressing in on the sensorial field. This can be infinitely added to by the direct or indirect influence of other incarnate or discarnate minds that are attracted by their own reflections. And lastly, Leonel tells the group, everyone is tempted on the outside by the temptation they feel on the inside. Now, Andre and his comrades are amazed at this succinct explanation. And I was too. You take the mental state of the victim, you use it, you magnify it by planting even more of the same back into the thought generator, and you have an effective, ever increasing feedback loop. So, and this is important for anyone who thinks they've been like they have this idea in their mind and they know it's a destructive or stupid idea. So you really have to stop that feedback loop. You really have to stop that, go do something else, right? Because our brains picks up more than we know. Our minds also radiate thoughts to the world, and we are a delicate instrument which must be kept in harmony at all times. And mediums are even more open to these influences because they have that ability to go across the veil. This is why a good medium must be really understand Spiritism, understand their own spirituality, forgive, don't think bad thoughts, because anything you do, right, anger or slander or cynicism, that'll all be used against you, right? And of course, now the other thing I'd like to say right up front, which is interesting because Maria said she was a medium, is I thought, well, yes, this is probably some type of obsession because most mediums, not all, but many mediums come back and they're mediums and they volunteer to become mediums because they have a lot to atone for in their past lives. Means they've done some pretty bad things. And I know I've done bad things. So, and the other thing, is modern stress opens us up and makes us vulnerable to outside influences upon our feelings. So you've got to guard against playing the same thoughts over and over again in your mind. They can be used against you. So if you find yourself pondering negative contemplations, take a time out, slow down, meditate, use your faith to forgive and forget, focus your energy on positive endeavors, garden, wash your car, read, whatever. Just like our physical body, which we must take an inventory at times to ensure our good health, we should do the same mentally. Take stock of what motivates you, examine your desires and plans for the future, moderate your aspirations, and go forward with your ideas using only honorable intentions, and all shall be right. Now, let's go back to Maria. So, let's me bring up the next bit. So, anyway, I just wanted to say these people, right? They are ones that are trying to affect her. They may be affecting her during the day, and they're certainly trying to do it taking as she's out of her body at night. So let's bring in the next step part. Okay, this is pretty small, but I wanted to go through this because this is important too. So then she says, dreams where I'm actually every person in the dream, but there are 5 different people. I live the dream through all 5 people's perspective. Now, this could be 2 different situations. Maria didn't supply more information about this type of dream. First options is she could have been each of the 5 different people in the previous lives, and she's thinking back of what each one did and how they felt. The second possibility is that Maria is given the gift of knowing what each of the 5 felt, their inner thoughts and feelings, through whatever she was dreaming about. This is a common occurrence in NDEs. The spirit world does this so a person may truly understand the effect of their actions upon other people. Now, you can tell the difference if any one of the 5 blames another for some adverse episode in their life. That must have occurred while both of them were incarnated at the same time. So if that happens, they were different people, right? Because they only could be alive at different states and they could not affect each other while alive. But if they seemed to come from different time periods, they all could have been Maria. So let's use an example of how the spirit world does this. This could be something. So there's an NDE by a woman named Amy. And she was very straightforward. And she even said, I used to just, when I told something, I told what I thought was the truth. And I just told them straight out. Well, when she had her near-death experience, she went and of course, they have this, group of spirits around kind of going through parts of her life. And she was brought into how she communicated with other people. And what she did is she was shown like this 3D movie, right, of where she was talking to different people, but she could not only replay what was in her thoughts, right, what in her minds and feelings, but she also felt what the other person thought. So again, this could be Maria mistaking that she was those 5 people, but in actuality, she just lived them through the 5 people's perspective. This would happen to Amy. She discovered when Amy was saying like, "Oh, you don't know how to do this," or saying something that was true but a bit harsh. She was feeling like how vulnerable they felt, how regretful they felt that all they want to do is be loved and be appreciated, and here is this woman putting them down and being mean to them. So the spirit world does this for us so we can learn to be empathetic, right? We can learn to be more diplomatic in our communication when we think someone is doing something wrong. And of course, I've done this too. And hopefully I've gotten better, but we can hopefully try to guide them and give them, examples and, little pushes, but not like what we think of the truth that they need to know because we're so perfect, right? Because Jesus said, why are you worried about the speck in their eye where there's a plank in your eye? And it's still true, right? You give them advice if they want it. If not, right, you don't. Now, let's go to the next. Now, this is the third one. This is about the killing in dreams. Let me read this one. But what bothers me most is killing in dreams. I'm always running away from people in my dreams, always bad people, sometimes even vampires or witches, etc. If they catch up to me in my dreams, I always end up having to kill them or be killed. I've asked many people if they kill people in their dreams, and they always say no. I know that it's always to protect myself, and I'm not a bad person, but I'm trying to find more clarity as why this keeps happening. Are all nightmares caused by an obsessing spirit, or is it my overimagination? I should say I don't always have nightmares, but they seem to be the majority of my dreams and always the most vivid. So I don't know this for sure, but I doubt if anyone who's left their body and journeyed to one of the levels of heaven have had dreams of killing people or being chased. These types of experiences usually take place in the lower zone. Now, again, this is important when you're trying to interpret your own dreams. If you're in a place where you feel good and you're talking to people, you may be confused, it's most probably heaven or some close. But if you were like you feel strange, and just as Maria, where people are chasing her and trying to kill her, is you're not in heaven. You're in the umbral or the dark abyss, which is lower, right? And of course, there's no hell. No, there's no one there forever. It's more like a type of purgatory. So Maria was probably in one of these lower zones, or even lower than that, which is the dark abyss. Both are populated by immature souls who reside there due to their own misbehavior. Now, excuse me. Get some water. The fact that Maria is even in the same environment as these poor souls point to the possibility that she is somehow connected to spirits who are trying to extract revenge for some past deed. Now, there is physical violence in the spirit world, in the lower zones. In the spirit communication by spirits of the Reverend Jivaon, there are talks of armies, gangs in the lower zone attempting to conquer cities and territory. The same is reported by Andre Luis in the books by the medium Chico Xavier, where he discusses walls and weapons that serve to keep out the ignorant spirits. And these weapons, so even the emissaries from heaven who are down in these lower zones where these immature and ignorant spirits congregate, they'll have walls around their little outposts, and they'll have weapons. Now these weapons will usually give a kind of electric shock which stuns the aggressive spirit, and they'll think they're dead for a minute, but they won't be. So first, the actual death of a spirit is not possible. Spirits fight and they think they're wounded and in pain, but they eventually recover and are back at it. So, as an example, let's talk about the Reverend G. Vaughan's book, Paul and Albert. And I talk about this in my book, Heaven and Below, which I talk about heaven and the areas below heaven. And hopefully it really shows you everything that is happening that at least is told to us so far. I'm sure there's a lot that we haven't been told, but it gives us so much more information than has been given to us heretofore. So Paul was a medical doctor in London, and he died and went to the lower zone. Now, so here's Paul. He was very successful, and in his travels, he had a car, he had a chauffeur, and as he, just before he died, he was thinking about how much money he made that day, and that the money he made that day would more than pay for everything the chauffeur had, his clothes, his watch, everything the chauffeur had on him. He made more than that. He's very materialistic. So Paul did not go to heaven, right? He was a very selfish doctor. He wanted money more than helping people. So therefore, in his travels, he was traveling, he was first visited by his guardian angel and given the chance to understand the situation, which he rejected. So then he wandered around the lower zone. And then he wandered along this place where there was a lot of people standing around. There was this big stage. And they said, "You, come up here." And he said, "Oh, I don't want to come." He said, "No." Then they used their greater determination and their will of force, said, "No, you're coming up here." And he came up there. There's a big rock at the back of the stage. They stripped him of all his clothes and chained him to the rock. Now, there's two spirits on the stage, a woman and a man. And that they started to give a lecture about, his body. And when they spoke, his whole anatomy, right? And when they talked about a certain organ, one of them had a knife and they cut his flesh and they pulled out like the liver or the heart, whatever. And they would say, here's the liver and the heart. And then they were also talking about all of his secret things he did wrong because they knew all his thoughts and, all about his most harmful behavior while he was incarnated. And he was just sitting there and they were taking his body out. And he was in immense pain, but he could see there was no blood. And then after the show was over, piled up his organs and stuff. They just tossed him into a cave. Well, he didn't die. He can't die. In his mind, he had these organs, and in his mind, they were all important, but he couldn't die because that was just really his paraspirit, his spiritual body covering, and they were just taking these, logical representations of organs and taking them out. And so then, he woke up and he was whole again, and and he still was wandering out, and it ended fine because eventually he went back years later and started going up into heaven and learning what he should have learned. But it just shows you there are death. Now, there's not death, because when Maria killed him, all she did was just knock him out for a bit. And when they killed her, they didn't really kill her. So you can't really kill anybody in the spirit world. You can knock them out. So, and then, there's reports of sophisticated weapons. Cannons would send out feelings of fear and confusion. And unlike our vision of hell, where zombies walk around in constant pain, no, and I said before, the lower zones are organized. They have mines, they dig for minerals. They have factories. They have a government, of course, all corrupt and unpleasant. Therefore, I surmise most probably the spirits who are seeking revenge pull Maria down to their level to confront her with her past crimes. And so one method used by spiritist centers to alleviate the problems caused by obsessing spirits is to communicate with them and understand the reason for their feelings of revenge and try and solve the root cause. Now, let me go forward and give an example of trying to solve the root cause. Now, this wasn't in a spiritist center. This is an example of Chico Xavier. And this is written by one of the person who used to be like an assistant. And he would be, as people go through a line and they would talk to Chico, and Chico would tell them. So one time this couple came by, and of course this guy was standing right next to Chico. And this couple said, "Oh, Chico, our daughter, she's having, she's obsessed. She's having really mental problems." And Chico thought for a second, and he said, "Go out and do good. Do good any way you can think. Just go do good for other people." So some months later, or maybe almost a year, the same couple came up, and this guy was right next to Chico again. And they said, "Chico, our daughter's better. She's normal and happy." And he goes, "Oh, that's so good." He goes, "What did you do?" And he goes, "Well, we went and helped, and we, helped who we could. We went to prisons and helped people." He goes, "Oh, very good." And then afterward, Chico told his assistant what really happened. So the mother and father of the daughter who was being obsessed went to prisons and helped people, talked to people, gave them things, talked to the prisoners about Spiritism. As they were doing this and helping these prisoners, the mothers, the discarnate mothers of the prisoners, right? People in the spirit world saw how wonderful the couple, they were trying to help their sons. These mothers went and said, "Let's see what this couple's about." They went to this couple and they saw that spirits were obsessing their daughter. So these mothers, these spirits, went to the people obsessing their daughter, said, "What are you doing? This couple's helping my son. Please stop this. This couple's wonderful. Don't hurt their daughter. They're doing good things." And the obsessing spirits stopped. So you never know. I mean, this is the rule for everything, but you never know. And of course, this is kind of, you see this over and over again in the books. Well, under Louise, our thought is, well, someone's obsessing my daughter. Like, I'll just go and kill them, right? Because that's the way we think in our civilization here on Earth. Is the good guy comes out with his gun blasting and kills the bad guys. Well, it doesn't work when you're immortal and you can't die. What makes the books by the whole Under Louise series is so good is what they do is, if there are spirits obsessing someone they don't want them to obsess, they'll come and they'll talk to the spirit and say, "What can I do for you? How can I help you? Why are you obsessing this person?" And it may not be for any reason except they were told to by someone else. And so what the spirits will do, they'll go out of their way to try and help the spirit who's doing something bad to show them that doing good is better. And as usual in the books, this person will go, why am I hurting this person when someone's helping me? Right? Because good magnifies itself. And so that is how they do that is they try to get the spirits who are obsessing. They say, okay, how can we help you? What is the root problem? I know you want justice, but can you let that person be good and explain to them about karma and reincarnation and how they can be helped? So again, this is something that mediums should know. Okay, so let's go to the next. Let's hide this. Now, again, there's so many fascinating things in Maria's dream. This is why I said I do this because it goes to the whole gamut, right? Of how to look at your own dreams. This is good for anyone to know. And then this one's very interesting too. So I'll read this one again. So just a few weeks ago, I had a beautiful dream where I was with my mother who lives in a different state than me. I can't say where it was because it was just like I was there. But I remember a ball of light came down and I said to my mom, it's grandmother, Mom, it's Avo. I don't know why I knew this ball of light was my grandmother, but in my dream, I was 100% sure it was. This is all I can recall of that dream. But I was very happy that I had a dream of her, as I've only ever had one dream with my grandmother since her passing over 18 years ago. I called my mom in the morning out of curiosity and asked if she had had any dreams that night. Mom said no, quite the opposite. She said she felt the urge to sleep. She was so tired. It was like someone was trying to make her sleep, and she fell into a very deep sleep and woke up this morning. To me, I know that it was real, and even more fascinating, I related to my grandmother as a ball of white light. Now, dreams can be a beacons of light sent from the spirit world. Let me give you an example, and this was one that Maria says is a very good example. Let me give you another example. And I was struck by the amount of support the spirit world gave a woman I corresponded with who had experienced the tragic loss of her baby boy. She was very distraught, and she couldn't understand why her son was taken from her. She found my Spiritist blog and was looking for answers, and she couldn't reconcile the loss of her baby boy with her deep Christian beliefs. And we texted back and forth, and I learned that her son had died at a very early age and that she had two other children. And as we were discussing Spiritism, I suddenly had the feeling to ask her if her son had any serious birth defects. Now, why did I ask that question? I asked it because in many instances in Spiritist literature, souls who have had traumatic previous lives, meaning a death by suicide or other causes, require special help to recover. A spirit can damage their perispirit, that which covers our body, and connects their spirit to their physical body, so severely that they require a short rebirth to correct it. A limited stay in a physical body will allow them to recover and then incarnate again in a healthy manner. So this woman was taken back by my question and asked me, why did I ask her? And I told her about the need to repair a perispirit. And she told me that her son had been born with a heart defect, but it was undetected at first. When they found out about it, he had an operation. He seemed to be recovering, but he died suddenly. And she felt great regret that she didn't find the flaw sooner. So I told her, I said, it was my belief that her little soul, her baby boy, most probably required an abbreviated stay, and then he may come back to her later, since I'd read about this occurring before. As an example, a man who killed himself with poison because he was in love with a woman who spurned him and went with another man. The spirit world, trying to reconcile past entanglements, sent him as her son in another life. He was born very sickly and only lived a few years. She was heartbroken. Happily, a year after his death, she had another son who was in actuality the same soul, but this time is very healthy because he had repaired his perispirit. So when I told her this, she told me of a dream she had. She was on a beach. She met a teenage boy, about 17 years old. She knew, just like Maria knew it was her grandmother, that was her lost son. She felt it was a vision to let her know he was fine and would still have a future. I told her she should seriously consider that the dream was arranged by the spirit world to give her hope and to not allow herself to fall into depression. Then, even more, she told me that her father in law dreamt that he had talked to her recently passed son. Her father in law said the boy talked to him and told him the universe was all about love. The father in law asked, what could they have done to keep him on earth? And the boy replied, it was all part of a plan. He told him it would all be fine. So then I told this poor mother, I said, this is another sign from the spirit world to give you comfort that you are very lucky to have such support and care surrounding you. Still, she was uncertain if these dreams meant anything. Then she told me another one. She told me her mother had a dream in which her son would be reborn to her. I was amazed. I had never heard of such a constellation of dreams, all for the purpose to supply love and comfort for a deeply sorrowful mother. Again, I expressed my beliefs that you have been given a wonderful gift, that you must be a very kind and loving person to have so much support from the spirit world. I told her, keep thinking positive and learn to love all around her. And she replied, well, she does love all her family. I said, no, you need to learn to love all of humanity with the same intensity as you love your little son. For that is the message the spirit world has sent us again and again. And that is what your son told your father-in-law. Now, excuse me. Now, at the end, I urged her to remain faithful and that all would be right, that she was part of a plan to help her and her family and her son. Now, when you hear this, you could ask, excuse me, how could she doubt with so many signs? But of course, in our culture, dreams and feelings aren't proof. Now, I need a drink. I perfectly understand her wish to know with certainty. At some time in the future of our planet, we shall know with absolute proof that the spirit world is real. But for now, on our current Earth, our current culture, which is a planet of atonement, where we travel through many lives to pay for our past debts and to learn, we are like students learning to be civilized. The spirit realm is actively teaching us, planning trials and classes for us to sit through. Like good teachers everywhere, they aren't going to give us answers. We must decipher them for ourselves. We need to gather what evidence we detect and build upon our faith a foundation of reasoning. Will we be able to communicate our findings to others with absolute certainty? No. But within ourselves, as we observe the phenomena around us, we know there is more than just our short and often brutal existence. Now, let's go back to Maria's experience. This is the most fascinating part. This is really what caught me of this. Let's take the second to last sentence first. Her mother felt as she needed to sleep. Now, right away, this was the spirit world sending her mother to sleep so she could take part in Maria's dream with her grandmother. This is how the spirit world works. I remember I was doing something and I can tell, in hindsight, of course, 2020, spirit world didn't want me to do this. And it made me, I was so sick during this time when I was trying to do something that was not good for me, that they can do that. They can make you sick. They can do these things to you. And so this to me it proves that these dreams are all extremely real and pertinent to Maria's life. Now, let's go to the second sentence. Maria saw a ball of light and knew it was her grandmother. Now, a ball of light is the natural form of a spirit, of a high spirit, right? Or any spirit. But like many spirits, at least in the lower levels, they still utilize their paraspirits, that which covers the human form, which gives them a human-like form, an idealized form, not very young nor old. An advanced spirit may decide to use the form or not. Now, Maria's grandmother decided not to take a human-like form, probably because she wanted her to remember the form of her mother and the memory of feeling the presence of her grandmother. Besides, Maria may have been confused if she saw a young, vibrant woman who was her grandmother. Because as we're told in Spiritism, if you're old, you get younger. If you're young, you get older. You get to this where you want to be in your life when you're in the spirit world. You're always beautiful. Now, think about that. So they didn't want Maria to get all confused. Who? And then her dream would have been remembering it. Who's this young woman? But I think she's my grandmother. So as an example, when the Indians at the time saw Cortez's ship and they came to Mexico, the Indians sent a message to Montezuma saying they saw mountains on the ocean. They didn't know what these things were. And this is why the feeling of the dream can be more important than the information provided. If the feeling is good and comforting, you know you went to a good place. If the feeling is tired or nervous, when you wake up, you probably went to a not so good place. As an example, when we're talking about killing or be killed. So let's go to the last. Let me bring that up. Hold on 1 second. Oh, I'll just read it. I didn't put that up because there was more. So it says, I should say I come from a family line of mediums. My grandmother was a spiritist and helped a lot of people at her center in Portugal. I've also seen and heard spirits since a young age, but I've always been in fear and wanted nothing to do with it. I've always turned my back on anything of the sort. I've heard from my family overseas all my life, you need to work, you need to go to the center or it will get worse. But I ignored all the advice. 6 months ago, I had my first encounter with a spirit, came through me and spoke. This shook me up very much, and since then I've given in, attended a spirit center, and have been invited to their mediumship meetings, but have not been able to attend since COVID-19. So now let's come to the crux of Maria's problem. And she states the problem in plain English. I've heard from my family all my life, you need to work, you need to go to the center, or it will get worse. But I ignored all of the advice. Now, I'm sure Maria already knows this, but she's probably looking for confirmation. Maria is, without much doubt, being called to be a medium so she can help herself and others. She's also one of those mediums who have probably quite a lot to atone for, and therefore she has spirits that are trying to punish her in their own way. So, in essence, Maria has a past history, like many mediums, of many deaths. Hence, she has to help her tormenting spirits understand that she is on earth to help others and to not be the selfish person she once was in a previous life. I was the same, right? Very selfish, mean person. Now, Maria only wrote me in the hope of, in the face, I believe, of overwhelming evidence that I would say, well, ignore all those dreams and go on with your life, because that way she could still say, I don't want anything to do with being a medium, right? And many people are like that. In fact, one time, this guy was in the back of the stage, right, of an audience, and she said, well, I think you're a medium. Oh, I don't want anything to do with that. And of course, he kept denying it, and when he's about 50, he finally became a medium. So you have to wait till you're ready, and a lot of people do not want to be that, and I don't blame them. It's a hard job, takes a lot of study, and you really put yourself out there helping others. And then to put the icing on the cake, she was approached by a spirit and proved to her that she had the right, pineal gland, that she could talk to the other side. And so her talent has been completely exposed. She has this dream, right? The crashing waters, the tsunamis, which are probably, symbolism of the emotional harm she's done others, right? Of things she's done in the past. She's had spirits go around her. She's put herself into the position of understanding different spirits, maybe her different lives. She's been in the umbral. She's been told by her family, hey, you got to get to a spiritual center, start exercising your talent. Then her grandmother showed up, and just made her feel all good, and her mother was there, so she would remember that dream, and it's all there, right? Now, so in summary, Maria is being called. She is being called to a grand and trying, difficult profession, but one that has been heralded by Allan Kardec. When he wrote that more and more people would be communicating with the other side, the old epoch where spirit communication was only in the hands of the ruling class is over. The elite priesthood had its chance and chose itself to make itself rich instead of a loving service to the people. You read this all the time in spiritual literature. The Catholic Church is more interested in having the people serve them than them serving the church. And it used to be, the priest, they would be the ones that would bring the communications from the other side. That has not worked. Now, with the advent of Spiritism, it's in the hands of the normal people. And of course, the normal people need ways to communicate. And part of that are people like Maria. Now, Maria's on the right track, right? She's studying Spiritism. And to be a successful medium, one needs to read the Spirit's book and the book of mediumship. So this is very important. Definitely, if you're going to think yourself as going to be a medium, read the book of mediumship and the Spirit's book, both by Allan Kardec, and they're available in PDF. Doesn't have to cost you anything. And then you can branch into books by others. My books too, which will direct her. There's also a good book for medium called "In the Realms or the Domains of Mediumship" by Chico Xavier, which will show you and tell you what is going on as far as mediums, and tells you how people are around the table, how when mediums are around. The other thing is I want to say is, yes, Marie should go to the Spirit Center and be a medium with other mediums. You don't really want to do it alone. You want to be disciplined. And then in the Spirit Center, you have spirits that will wall off that room where the mediums are and only let the spirits that the guiding, the superior spirits will let in. And then you're all together and you increase your energy, and it's a much safer proposition. So I would tell people, don't try to do this on your own a Ouija board, right? Understand. So if you want to understand the spirit world, I would recommend my book, Heaven and Below, Book 1 of Spiritism, which is talking about heaven, the lower zone, the umbral, and other places like that. And then the second book in the series is Spirits in the Spirit Universe. Again, this will tell you what are spirits. What are you going to be when you pass over? What are your powers? How do you learn? How do you become a superior spirit? It's all there. It's all about colleges and how you're given attributes. Your powers increase. Your power is godlike as you go higher and higher. And this is the reason we're being trained on earth, because thought is action in the spirit world. Therefore, are they going to let someone inferior like me, who sometimes think bad thoughts or gets angry, let me there with the power of my mind? I don't think so. No, I'm not going to be allowed to do that until I reform myself. And then my last book in the series of 3 is How We Are Guided by Spirits, and talks about how they affect us, how they affect whole nations, and what is the future of the world. Now, my more book that is my own personal journey to Spiritism is in the 7 Tenets of Spiritism, How They Impact Your Daily Life, which I go about how I found Spiritism, how I saw the signs and signals. And this is something that Maria is going through right now. See, she is being herded into the direction of becoming a medium. And in fact, this one woman was talking about, she's English, and she was interested in Spiritism. She wanted to start like a little study group. And the spirits told her, yeah, go to this bookstore and put up a notice that we're going to have a study group. And they go, no, I got to finish cleaning my house first. I have this routine. I have to clean my house. And she said they were practically pulling and pushing her. And so she got on wrote a little note, and she started walking towards the bookstore, and they're like pushing her. And she put the note on the board, and she got back, and she already had like calls like, oh yeah, I've been interested in this, and I want to join the spiritual study group. Of course, they were trying to push her because they knew these two people, or how many they were walking towards that place looking for that message. I mean, this is what's so wonderful about the whole spirit world. First, they know everything, right? They bring all these things together. The spirit world put Maria's mother to sleep, right? And then her grandmother came as a spirit at the right moment, at the right time. They allow these obsessive spirits kind of bother her and say, well, this is a big negative out there. I need to do something about that. And then they give her, well, here's the answer. Here's the door. Go to the spirit center, start increasing, start finding out about these things. And of course, Maria stepped up and she is learning about Spiritism and spirits and all that. So, but this is how and this is very intelligent by Maria too, is to really go through her dream and look for confirmation, because I'm sure that she knew what the dream meant. But I think I'm just here. My task in this was just to confirm, I believe, what Maria already knew. So anyway, I want to say thank you for everyone being with me tonight. I am here live streaming. I'm trying to make this on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock Eastern, other time zones all around the world. And please subscribe, hit the bell, hit the like button. And if you're interested, please get my books and leave comments, and please leave reviews on the books if you so desire. Anyway, I want to say God bless every one of you. God bless.